It's my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker today. Stephen is a multi-award winning transformation leader and strategist. He's also the author of Introduction to Adaptive Business Practices, Change Readiness, Planting the Seeds for Change Success, and Sense and Respond, The Journey to Customer Purpose. In 2012, Stephen created the Sense and Adapt Academy to help businesses of all sizes and all industries to create superior work climates and cultures by changing the way employees, managers, and leaders think about the business. Now, Stephen, the floor is yours. Take it away.
I am very honored to be invited to this talk. And I've spoken to Manwai and the teams on numerous occasions, and the effort that they've been putting in the background to advertise and promote this is great for a speaker. And all the technology has been set up for me, and it just doesn't happen just like that. It takes a lot of work, and I want to thank you all for that from the start. So you make speakers feel great about this. Okay. And Manwai, thank you very much for that very comprehensive introduction. I want to talk today about change and trying to change the way we change. And why do I say that? Well, throughout this talk, I think you'll start to understand that the way change is constructed is very similar to the way that traditional organizations are organized. And the problem with that is, if you're trying to introduce something new, the very change process is designed to exclude it. It is not conscious. It is embedded into the processes and the bias of how it should work. And really, I want to challenge that today. And I think we'll get better change, better engagement, better organizations, and a lot more contribution to society, a fairer way of working, if we think about the way that we change. And at the center of this today, I'm going to be bringing in a case study, and I'm going to be building up some of the things that happened on that case study that changed the managers, the staff, the customers, and many other people in that organization to realize, one, they were going in the wrong direction. Two, they were measuring the wrong things. Three, they had the wrong structures to be able to do what they wanted to do. And no matter how hard they tried, they reinforced the old behaviors. And I want you to see how they broke out of that. And it's quite simple once you understand what's going on. Now, I will give a warning. These slides are detailed in words, and that is deliberate, because all transformation programs at the top level sound exactly the same. Yes, we engage with our customers, we're engaging with our staff, we give them time off to go and do things, etc., to enhance the experience. But it's when you look at the detail, it's in the detail that shows you they are going in completely different directions. One's reinforcing the old world, and the other one is creating an adaptive organization and completely moving away from it. So I make no apologies for the detail. You'll get those in the slides, because the devil, as they say, is in the detail. So on the first slide here, you have my contact details. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Adaptive Business and Cultures. There's senseandadaptacademy.com, and please just link up with me on LinkedIn, and I'm giving you lots of updates on some of the stuff that's going on. Okay, so let's get back into this. I want to talk about adaptive business as a way of separating it from agile, which I'm not putting down by any means. That's moved us forward significantly. But there are things about an adaptive organization which are, while they appear subtle, have a very profound impact on the behavior and who makes decisions in organizations. So I came up with this saying, if you like. To become an adaptive business means manage the transformation from the old world to the new. And I really want to take a case study and show you that today. The word transform literally means going beyond your current form. And this is so that you engage with the future very differently. And it's not in the methods. There are thousands of methods and they come and go. But the principles for engaging willing contribution from staff, managers and leaders, their ingenuity and the commitment, that is timeless. But in modern organizations, we've forgotten that and we tend to have it as an add-on later, where people are innately adaptive, but the systems and processes and the design of work really prevents us being enterprising. It means rethinking and reimagining how we use work to achieve harmony with a changing marketplace. So that I'm going to explain how we can get through that. Okay, I'm going to dive straight in and say, let's look at the typical organizational change dynamics in a traditional organization. Now, I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not making that value judgment, because for a lot of organization, this does the job really, really well. But if your business is under threat, you're beaten by the competition, you've got high staff churn as well as customer churn, and everything that you're doing is being copied, you may think again about how you do change. So this is the traditional change dynamic. Now, change is complex. So this is a thumbnail sketch, but you get the idea about the dynamics of traditional change and the dynamics of adaptive change. The first bullet point says, managers and staff usually have a favorite design for the organization. In fact, they send them around. We even have companies sending people out saying, this is the best operating model for you, blah, blah, blah. This is the one that they use most of all. So there is inbuilt in most people's minds a preformed idea of what an operating model, a way of working looks like. So they're looking at ways of making that go better. So traditionally, they design the organizations into specialisms, assigning goals related to those specialisms. Okay. Senior managers at this point already have an idea because the operating model has already been defined, because it's the next best thing. So we are putting it in. So the managers at usually a senior and mid-management level are already thinking about which part of this model that they're going to operate and take control of. So that is decided very early on. Then the managers will start evaluating all their staff, looking at who does what, who is good at what, to fit into this new model. And then a whole host of horse trading, as I called it, goes on, with managers going up to people saying, I think it's a great opportunity if you come and work with me, blah, blah, blah. You know the stuff, some of you have been there. So they're trying to persuade their staff to come and work for them. And so there's this trading war between managers for the best staff. Then there's a kick-off after a lot of preparatory stuff. But basically the scene is set. Then what happens is staff start complaining that they didn't get the positions that they were promised by an individual manager, not realizing there was a trade-off behind the scenes going on to actually sort out who goes where. Then the managers create a get-well plan. Why? Because it's not working. Well, they've got to clean up the mess created by what I call orphaned work. They've taken a model, usually a standard model from somewhere else, reorganized from the top down, and now they find out there's an awful lot of work that isn't in anybody's control. It's what I call orphan work. And then we need to have a get-well plan, because by now the business is starting to suffer and nobody wants to take this bit of work that is left out because they've already got a lot to do. So it becomes rather troublesome. Some of you might have experienced that, and you can maybe message in the message thing later on that we can have a discussion if any of you have experienced some of that. Okay, I want to change to what I call the sense and adapt. The sensing is really, you're sensing where you are with the organisation today. Is it fit for purpose? Can you do today's business as well as tomorrow's? Not rushing out to tomorrow and everything falls behind you. So this is a different way of thinking about the change dynamics. And you can illustrate in your mind's eye the difference between the two. We start by understanding the customer's purpose. Who starts understanding? Well, the staff, mid-managers, senior leaders, and the board. Okay, how well do we serve customers today? What is the real purpose of the customer? And we will go through in this presentation how to determine what the customer's real purpose is. You can use any number of methods. I'm quite agnostic about the methods, but I do have favourite, which is agility at the enterprise level, which is also lean at the enterprise level, and what I call sense and adapt, which is about the dynamics of change and the type of cultures and learning structures that we create. Whatever way you do it, it doesn't matter. You're looking for how does the work flow from start to finish. You need to help your staff identify that. There is a relentless focus on delivering to the customer's purpose, followed by the employee's purpose. Because if the change doesn't make the lives of the staff happier, then you're not doing your job. All right? They're not a resource to exploit in that way. They're a resource when working with you to make work more valuable, more sustaining, but you need willing contribution to do that. The staff test new team designs, having understood how the work flows end to end and up and down the hierarchies. So they've looked at that and they found lots of disconnects everywhere. And then they start thinking, well, how do we get these disconnects out? And then we start testing new team designs. What sort of skills? And it is the staff that are doing this, with usually first-line managers. Top guys are out of it at the moment. What then happens is the staff design the management structures with the skills that are required to manage the teams around the way they think the work should work to the customer. And you can see this is a very different way of thinking. It is not an imposed design. This is a design that is created in situ with data, with experimentation by the people who have to run it. Then we have a migration. We don't have a big bang. One day we got this tranche of people going over, then another. No, we are migrating to this new way of working. All right, there is no get well plan. But what we do have, and this is tongue-in-cheek, is managers complain they didn't get the job their staff promised them. This is a true story, and I'm going to explain how they did that very shortly. There is no get-well plan, as I said. It is purely incremental and becoming more and more adaptive, more and more learning as we go on. There is no drop in current performance as you're going on to the next. You're doing both. So you can see that's a very different perspective. And I'm going to deep dive into some of those things that made that possible quite quickly. But there's something else that's really worrying me and why I agreed to do this presentation. There's a couple of truths we have to admit. The first one is the rate of business change and organisational change now is not incremental, it is exponential. I am not going to list all the change that you're expected to absorb without taking anything out. It becomes a crazy mashup of everything, and it doesn't deliver everything, only into this some sort of Frankenstein's monster to please the fads that come in. This is not a good way to continue your business in the complex world that we have. I can list all those changes, but it's pointless. A lot of people are relying on mastering continuous improvement through Agile, through Kanban and all this. It is not going to get us there anytime soon. And I will prove that to you now. If that's where you are in continuous improvement and you're in a chaotic environment, lots of overburden, decision making is thrown to the winds, you're running round like blue bottles, all right, continuous change is not going to help you when you are losing control of your day-to-day business. We have to learn how to manage continuous change. And this means a fundamental change in the roles that the staff do, the managers do, and even the board. So, I will say up front, for most organisations, they are now waking up into the importance of the employee, not just to keep them happy. You cannot command and control creativity, ingenuity, or even willing commitment. These are relationships, and the relationships are changing in the business. And it used to be the customer's experience is top. That hasn't gone away. But the only way you can satisfy that is the employee experience today is they will not be command and controlled. They will not have command and hope without any direction. They want to be part of the decision-making process. They want to learn, and so the managers also need to learn in this environment. The thing is, nobody's been through the type of change that we're going through. Young and old. You don't learn this on MBA courses or LinkedIn courses, God forbid. We're all novices, and we can only do this by working together, looking for disconnects and working with them. We need to prepare for the tornado of change, because if we don't, this potential golden age of change will pass us by and we will become history. I'm serious about that. So if you're a change practitioner, please start thinking about what skills you are acquiring. And it is learning skills. Learn how to learn how to teach other people, and learn how to diagnose organizations yourself. This is what those people did. And I'll show you in the case study in a moment. Another part of this truth, and I've been talking to lots of managers and even board members. They're saying, look, it's changing so rapidly, we're feeling left behind. They're feeling overwhelmed and powerless because it's change, chop and change. How do we integrate this? Yes, we can see the benefits, but it doesn't integrate. It doesn't suit us. I can't see how all of this connects. So it creates more and more confusion. People feel disconnected, feel disjointed. They don't feel part of the process. They don't even know how to articulate what they're feeling. And they're afraid to do that because they might get left behind in the change for having a bad attitude. They start feeling less competent and confident as everything is shifting. And moreover, what they're seeing is new people with different skills are coming in, taking jobs that you've not seen advertised, and you're wondering what the hell they are doing. Because these people are getting these new positions to do X, Y, and Z. And that's a two-edged sword, because you're leaving all of your staff disenfranchised instead of using all your staff to change your organization. So the resultant risks of this for you as individuals is your status and reputation are at stake. So while it's all changing, you still got to deliver. All right. Job security is threatened because of these reorganizations. We start stopping work. We don't take any risks in case we're out on our ear, because we don't know if that's where the strategy is going. Anxiety goes up, and it might result in health issues. Or you might turn around and say, look, this is just a fad. We'll keep our head down and we'll let this pass. I'm afraid in this time, this is not going to pass. It isn't. It's here to stay. And we have to be more adventurous, courageous, and tenacious to learn the new stuff. And don't be so afraid of the failure, because the failure is what brings us through. So what's the evidence for this? I'm going to go through this really quickly. This is research that came out this year. The references there, you can look at the full report. I've brought the significant headlines from this. And what I'm saying is, look, this might look terrible, but it's also the opportunity. I think it's a golden age for change. And if you're young in this business, this is where you need to go, because you will be the pioneers. 90% of business leaders are undertaking large-scale organisational change of many types. We know that. 50% of CEOs say the COVID has increased the pressure for transformation. That's obvious, okay, because they've found out they're not resilient, they've had to change lots of things, and the drive to change and adopt new ways of working, adopt technology, is now something that they're thinking about is going to help them with their own recovery. 50% of the business leaders plan to increase their allocation of resources in not just the technology, but the technology is taking up 50% of the investment. And that's in the next 12 months. But the next ones for me are the ones that are really striking. 44% intend to allocate additional resources to the transformation of their entire business model. That's everything is up for grabs. How do you learn? Me introducing my agile methods, my Kanban methods, when the model itself is changing. The last one is also a good factor for all of us, because the majority of senior managers and board members say their biggest concern is the ability of their managers, their partners, their suppliers to be able to take on board this change. That's the dynamics of the integration of the technology processes and the different ways of working and the different relationships and power distribution with the managers. So they're scared. So that's where you come in. But there is a painful question which I'll pose right now. And it's this. We saw with the two models, there's a traditional approach. How do you break through and say, look, it's not the only approach? So this question is, how can we shift our skills, knowledge, and behaviours? And I put this out to doesn't matter whether you're in Lean, Agile, Kanban, all the other stuff. The real question is, how can you use your knowledge to help the board, the workforce, the managers adapt to the tornado of change we're experiencing today? I am sick and tired of seeing an Agile report which says the biggest barrier of change is buy-in at the top. And I'm thinking, well, you're obviously talking to them about the wrong thing. You don't understand the management priorities. Perhaps if you took time to understand that, you would get buy-in. But actually there's no buy-in. It's a common change. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that this team did to start thinking about shifting that perspective. And it's very important. So we need to integrate the purpose of the business with the value. Usually they seem separate, but this is for customers, employees, and the business. So this is part of the case study that I'll show you later. And the case study, the people went through exactly this. All right, so I'm going to talk about common purpose in a minute, which is where we should be getting to. But most organizations have what I call a waterfall purpose, which means somebody at the top has done some stuff. They say, this is our purpose, and they cascade it throughout the organization. And it doesn't mean anything to me when I'm 3 layers down. But I can recite it if called upon. So I've given some, these are real ones. There's a link here. You can go and think about what these purposes are. All right, we'll talk about this one in red. To be the Earth's most customer-centric company, where customer can find and discover anything they might want to buy online and endeavours to offer its customers the lowest possible prices. Well, that's great. That's going to make me get out of bed in the morning. That's going to make me take on the pain to help you be adaptive. So let's understand how that organisation works. It is through commanding that. All aspects of that are laid out and you have a part in that and you can't get out of that. It works for them. They make billions. Okay. Establish ourselves as the premier purveyor of the finest coffee in the world while maintaining our uncompromising principles while we grow. Okay. So what's in it for the customer? What's in it for the employees? That's all the business. And you've all got to say yes, sir. To refresh the world, to inspire moments of optimism, happiness, to create value and make a difference. That's great, motherhood and apple pie. Doesn't tell you anything about the job. Doesn't tell me why I should get out of bed and collaborate with people. It doesn't even, half of these don't even tell you what the product is. That's a waterfall purpose. And there are thousands of them. So I want to talk to you about a common purpose. But before I do that, I want to dive into this slide so that you'll understand how I unfold this, and you're going to see some pictures of people going through this. The saying here, there needs to be a clear line of sight between everything that you do, whether you're in HR, finance, help desk, in software development, a clear line between everything that you do and customer value. You go and ask a HR person that. You're very hard pushed. So, what we have with this, HR are waking up at long last. There's a business purpose quadrant, employee purpose, customer purpose, and then the common purpose. The thing about the common purpose is not the other three taking a piece out. We do this for the business, this for the employees, this for the customer. No, this common purpose is something, whichever box that you're in, you are inspired by that purpose. And it motivates you, and it becomes true north. And it's not about wishing on a star. That's just like a piece of luck. It's true north is nonsense. Okay? When you're out around the universe, there is no true north. It's where we are taking the business through the universe. Common purpose. So let's go into this, and I'm showing you now what they did. We had something like 12 people from different parts of the organisation. We had some customers in there as well. We separated it into 3 teams, and one team worked on the business purpose, another one worked on employee purpose, and another one worked on the customer purpose. So then what happened is, and this is a real one, the teams then came back and the other 2 teams critiqued what they came up with. And the test was, will I get out of bed in the morning? But does it touch, move and inspire me? Do I want to give willing contribution to this over and above because it's meaningful? That's what willing contribution means. And I am involved, not engaged. Then they get the feedback, they reiterate that, and then they come back and then they put it into those 3 quadrants. And I'll deep dive into that in a minute. But we haven't got the common purpose. So let's just take a look at what these people came up with. That's managers, staff, and customers, and they were all mixed up in these teams. So it was a very different conversation to the waterfall objective of this very large organisation. Completely different. So this is what they came up with. The employee purpose. Now you may think this is obvious. to contribute with my skills, be fairly rewarded in a secure and trusted environment that offers me challenges and allows me to develop and grow. Why was that so important? You'd think that would be a given. Is that too much to ask for? Well, in this organisation it was, because they were treated as individual parts. They were changed in and out of teams. They were a resource. It was not about challenging or helping them grow. It was to do a job within a job specification as cheaply and as neatly as possible, what I call busy, busy, bang, bang work, where the managers look for getting the biggest bang for the buck. They didn't get the training. So now we come on to the customer purpose, and this is a very large business creating and selling enterprise-wide software. You would know the name of this company. If you were selling ERP systems, saying, well, I want the best ERP systems, yeah, fine. And you might measure that. But actually talking to the customer, why were they buying this software and this technology? And they said, well, really, I want you to strengthen my business. Not just make a process work, but strengthen my business in a way that differentiates me from my competition. Don't give me a bloody me too. I want you to do it in a different way. Differentiates me from my competitors and provides a return on my investment. That's not meeting the specification. This is a job for life, continually changing. And this is where adaptiveness, the door to adaptiveness starts opening. So what was the business purpose? To provide expertise, that's the employees, to train them, and services, design the services, to enable us to produce, sell and support software by creating a robust, effective, efficient IT solutions. So we got three very different purposes. Now, you can have questions about, well, how do I measure that? What are the outcomes that I should be measuring? Not the bloody SLA. Sorry, I'm saying bloody too many times. It's late to you, I'm terribly sorry. The common purpose didn't come until 9 months later, but there was enough for them to say, we need to change. Eventually came up with pride, we relentlessly pursue and apply our insight, ingenuity and technologies to create a wealth and a secure future. For who? The customers, the employees and the business. That's one purpose that we can unite around. And as I was starting to mention, two of the service managers went to their customers and said, this is what we want to do with you. They haven't changed the big purpose of the company. We want to work together with pride, sharing our stuff, our ingenuity, so that you become secure, you differentiate, and then you'll keep employing us and we will keep giving you stuff that'll keep you ahead, because that creates wealth for all of us. And I'll get out of bed for that. So, common purpose or a waterfall purpose? So that's one stepping stone. Merging purpose and value. Purpose without stated value is our platitudes. Learning and sharing. Understand how your business works together and share the discoveries. So, what I'm doing here, I'm going to show you another matrix, which is looking at what do businesses measure. And what businesses measure tells you about the psyche of the business. Now, some of it is inbuilt, it's been there for years, but they don't realize it. So this is a matrix that said, is this a functional measure which only applies to my business, even if it's a functional measure in that everybody's on cost, they might be measuring different costs, so it's still functional. And if they're only looking at the average and not the range around that, that's not the full picture. So, is it functional and does it matter to the customer? No or yes? Is it end-to-end? It goes right across the business, across all the silos. Does it matter to the customer? Yes or no? So, I've taken some of the ITIL ones and put it in here. This is the same. I've done this with health services, police forces, public sector. They're all cluster in the bottom. which means they are functional and they don't matter to the customer. But guess what? We're achieving them. But the other measures, there are few of them, because the left-hand side on this is all about managing resource of every kind. So we get bigger bangs for the buck. It's wired in. But the other side is outcome, which is effectiveness. So, how do they do this? These are real ones that I'll show you in a minute. Another case story. Before, there were hundreds of measures, OLAs, SLA, OKMs, whatever, all three-letter acronyms. But there were nothing much about outcomes. It was all about resource management. So that is really what the psyche at the heart of the business was about. Managing and containing resource, not necessarily customers, and meeting usually a resource-driven SLA for the customer. So this is a real business. They sat down with me, they put out all their measures, the colours of the stickies doesn't matter, and they put them all in the top right quadrant. And they rather smugly turned around to me and said, look, all of these are in end-to-end and what matters to the customer. I said, oh, that's very interesting. You must be doing really, really well. Yes. And then they said to me, so why are you here? By the way, all of those in that top quadrant are all green. That's not the colour of the sticky. The measurement is green. I said, that's fine. So 2 weeks later, after going out, seeing the real customer, seeing people producing the products and services for these people, for their customers, they came back and they did it again. And something remarkable had happened. They'd moved from this untidy way of doing it, and suddenly they got very neat and tidy. No, that was not the problem. What the problem was, is they're the same measures, but look where they shifted them to. They realised they were internal and they had convinced themselves they mattered to the customer. And they didn't. That's why they had high customer churn. That's why we had lots of performance indicators driving at people for not meeting their numbers, and people were being demotivated. Now, before I move on, quite quickly, I'm going to say, if you were trying to transform a team, where that team thinks that enduring, that graph, where everything is in the top right quadrant, if you truly believe that and know that you truly believe that, and then you change that to the second one, which team is likely to be transformed? Which team is likely to start fighting for the business? I remember a woman saying to me at a telco, where were you 20 years ago? And this was a long time ago. I said I was probably going through university at the time. She said, you should have been there, because I've been doing all of this work all the time and it is pointless. So we've got the wrong measurement, driving the wrong thing. Right, there's another way of using this matrix. These are the same matrix, same company, but these all clustered down the bottom, and these were the complaints of the managers of what their pain points were and what they wanted the new transformation program to go and fix. Pain points, pain points, pain points. Then if you're into lean, it's waist pain. They're worried about the wrong thing. Busy, busy, bang, bang, all noise, nothing loaded. This is why it's frustrating. Leading and choosing, and I'm going to finish up quite quickly with this. If you take all the business problems in your business and put them into a big disk like this, there are so many you can't get them all on the screen. So these are everything. Now what I'm saying here is collaboration is not about those silo little things. Your whole staff managers and leaders should be concerned about operational issues from top to bottom, end to end, and the business issues as a result of that. because they can solve that. And that's what the case study that I'm showing you did. They were looking at business issues. So, business problems. You then ask a question of the mid-management teams, the senior managers come and say, look at all of this, look at the waste, look at the costs, we're not meeting our SLAs, customer churn is high. So they get together and say, okay, what should we do? And the type of thing they come up and says, oh, we're not given the right resources, they're asking for too much, we're going through all of this change, blah, blah, blah. But that's the size of the disc. That's what should be looked at, but they don't. So they ask themselves another question. Well, we can't do that because it's outside our scope. Who put it outside your scope? You did. What could we do instead, which is inside my scope? Which is a lot smaller. So ask another question, which is what I did. I said, okay, that's fine. You could do that. It's a lot smaller, but what will you do? What you committed to do? And that's even smaller. I said, yeah, I'd like to do that, but I'm overburdened. I've got this. I'll miss my busy, bang, bang SLAs. If I do that, you can see the craziness within this. It's pitiful because there are real people's livelihoods and jobs. So a year I go back and said, so what did you do? Oh, it changed. We had other priorities. Just message me if you find this true. All of these things, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Then you find out you don't have time or it's too hard and difficult. And then you have to work on something else because that's gone on fire too. Because you think you're going to get round to fixing those fires, sometimes maybe in the imagination of your brain. You never do that. So nothing changes. This is what adaptiveness is about. This is the adaptability zone for your staff, leaders, and your managers. It's all up for grabs. Now, there are some things that are outside your state of control. Yes, but it's a lot bigger than that pink down there. And staff have been working on that. They even created the vice president's jobs, as we will see. Reserve the right to be wrong. Change your mind in the light of evidence. Get evidence. So to do this, to get this big collaboration going, understand the fragmentation, the misalignment of goals and targets. This is serious business, and you can tell from my voice. I have seen people suffering because they don't do this. I have seen people's jobs outsourced because they didn't meet those internal targets, because somebody else can do it cheaper. Help them work outside the box. And then capitalize on this freedom. Managers encourage staff to work horizontally, upstream. This is a very different way of learning. Okay. We need to adapt ourselves, first of all. I put this slide up. I'm quickly going to go through because I'm conscious of the time. I'm going to show you how they managed to change that organisation where the staff are working for vice president's jobs they designed. They're still there today, 5 layers above. This was their model. It was a global model. It was the spaghetti monster. There was nothing joined up. It was fragmented. Okay. So the team was brought together from around the world. There's people from Japan, India, well, around the world. Americans, Germans, Indians. And they went on this, you saw the work that they did. They started understanding they weren't creating value. They were just shifting work around, and they were just shifting tickets to meet tickets. Everyone was doing it, even up to the management. Most of the incidents didn't need to happen. So they created a way of how should the work flow? And then what are the sorts of teams that should be set up to make this work around the globe? And how are we going to find out and test that? they also started giving themselves, saying, look, the previous way of working, the manager is overloaded with everything. He has to tell everybody what to do. That's on the left. They wanted to move to what was on the right. But that meant every one of the people that were working for the manager had to step up into a new role that they were designing. And they were also going to HR saying, that's what you should measure me on. Where's the change resistance? And these are the guys talking to the senior managers about a prototype to test the components together, discover new ways of working. And then they put in front of the senior managers, these are the senior managers, these were all the disconnects. And these were all the things they were going to try to fix that and experiment individually and experiment in different combinations to create a new way of working globally. And in 18 months, every single one of them, including the VPs, were in different jobs. No change resistance. And this was the team that did that. So I will remind you, this is the change that's out there. Either it's an opportunity or it's the end of the road. 3 books before I go. The Human Side of Enterprise. I've got it on the shelf there. This is the updated version. This is my Bible. I read this and I start understanding how these assumptions about the measurement and everything. It is not easy. Organizational change. But this is a great, great book. It's written by somebody who has since become a good friend of mine, Joel Kutcher. Gershenfeld, he did the annotation on this, brought it up to date. And in this book, he actually cites a number of my transformations where he says, it's pure theory Y, which is what McGregor talked about. You'll hear people talking about theory Y and theory X. That's the surface layer. That's where the gold dust is. Another one by Joel, Viable Disconnects in Learning, Organizational Learning System. Again, some of my work is referenced in that. Another great book, it comes out of the Lean movement, by Learning to Lead, by Leading to Learn. All right? So you're learning to lead, but you're leading people so that they can learn. So it's a joint process. And it comes out of the Toyota way of thinking about it. But it is not unique to Toyota. So this is an absolutely fabulous book if you want to see about the relationships between management and staff to gain mutual respect, willing contribution, being given awesome challenges and overcoming them and being developed and making the company successful. So I am done. A little bit over, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Stephen, you definitely giving us some food for thoughts there. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. And so I know that there are a few questions already in Mentimeter. So what we're going to do is JF and I is actually going to interview Stephen next week for our podcast. And we will include those questions in there. And I'll let you know once the podcast episode is ready so that you can actually hear the answer. So don't worry, you're not being shortchanged. Now, however, before we end, we would like to get some quick feedback from you, if that's okay. JF is going to start the poll in Mentimeter. And in case you don't have the link, here is the Menti link again. Okay, so JF, can you just start the poll? So first question, what were you hoping for when you joined the session? I hope you don't have any problems getting into Menti.
Does it taste minty?
Yeah, hang on.
What?
leadership involvement, perspective, sensing, wisdom, adaptation tactics, organizational change, networking, improve my strategy. Cool.
Right. Brilliant. All right, let's move on to the next question. To what degree did this session meet your expectations?
Okay, I think I'm losing you right now.
We can hear you, Stephen. Let's see.
Oh, the sound's getting better. It's coming through loud and clear now, thank you. I think I'll stay.
Okay, so let's move on to the third question. How engaging was this meetup? Ooh. Very nice. All right, let's go to the final question. What is the one takeaway that you're walking away with? Right, focus on customer value, change, human side of complex systems, adaptability zone, involved versus engaged. Check the research study. Learn to lead. Chaos demands different. Staff can make differences. Make sure the change counts. The graphs of business, common, employee, customer purpose. Change is exciting and change is difficult. Sense and adaptability. Adaptive incremental change. Learn to lead. Thank you so very much. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Stephen, for giving us such a wonderful talk. And on behalf of the SF-BABAM co-organizers, we hope to see you next month. That's it. Bye-bye.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Ciao.
Bye, okay, guys.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Stop the busy, busy, bang, bang work.
Cheers, everyone. See you again.
Busy, bang, bang.
Thanks so much.